Hello, everybody. Welcome to Rock, Paper, Hand Grenades. I'm Matt Connerton.
It's like musical notes.
And to my right is this. He's on some medication or off some medication or something. But whatever it is, it's
whatever.
This is the Honorable Gary S. Hopper.
Matt, top of the evening to you.
Is it the top? Is 6 p.m. or 6:05 the top of the evening?
I think so. I think it's the top of the evening.
I should know. I'm Irish, but I've never been sure about
top
this.
is the beginning, I think.
Well, I know the top of the hour is the beginning, yeah.
Right,
So I guess the top of the
therefore,
evening.
The evening really kind of starts around 6 o'clock.
True. So I guess it is the
So it's
top of the evening. It is literally the top of the evening.
Top of the evening.
Wow. Excellent.
Unless you want to call it 5 o'clock, then it's kind of the mid-top.
Well, in the central time zone, it would be
Right.
5, yeah.
That's all we got.
All right.
The end.
Good show.
That's the
Thanks,
end.
everybody.
Hey, thanks.
We're just very efficient.
Now, I'm a jerk. George Lambert is our guest, but I forgot your wife's name because I'm a total
Rhonda?
jerk.
It's Rhonda.
Rhonda, okay. Anyway, George Lambert's running for Senate, and I guess Rhonda's running for assistant senator.
House member, yes.
Oh, you're running for House?
State representative,
Oh,
Congratulations.
You know that?
No, I
Excellent.
didn't know that.
Oh, yeah, she's actually running for my seat, House Bill 44.
I'm wicked ignorant. I take ignorant to the next,
Ignorant? Is that what you said?
ignorant.
yes. It
Ignorant?
is.
Yeah.
I don't even know how to say it.
New words even.
That's how
You
they
need
say
to
it
come on
down
the show
south.
more often, learn more, and, learn
Right.
about top of the hours and ignorant.
What is it? Just because he's vacated the seat, you're going to run for the seat, or you have a? Well, you're always pretty passionate about politics too, just like he is, anyway, right?
I'm not as passionate as he is. I leave that up to him. I do dabble in it. I have become frustrated with the way things were going, and whereas he was vacating his seat, I wanted to make sure that there was more people coming into the House that will be able to keep building a stronger New Hampshire.
Wouldn't it be nice if, since you're married, you could just kind of you just take the seat, you just kind of transfer it
They
somehow?
have a term for that. That's actually unconstitutional.
Oh,
Yeah.
pesky
There are no
Constitution.
hereditary offices.
No hereditary offices.
All right.
Even if your name's Kennedy.
Even then?
Even if your name's Kennedy. I know that's bizarre, but
That is bizarre.
yeah, because that's one of the things they fought against is the fact that, lords would be, hand down their position, and the king would hand down his position, and people were in. That's actually one of the things that caused the French Revolution. Was it was handed down to a kid who was really had no capacity to run a country. And he got himself into so much debt that the peasants were dying and starving, but he and Marie Antoinette had very nice parties going on all the time.
Yes.
Like going to play golf while people are dying or something.
Right. It was nice work if you can get it.
Just side note.
Well, we ought to be we ought to be hopeful that the president goes out and does a tour of the current medical crisis in Africa, and maybe he'll get quarantined.
Wow.
That's harsh.
Yeah,
That's-
George.
That's George.
Jeez.
Well, that they've actually quarantined multiple countries that don't even have Ebola yet in Africa. So, there's no way to get out of them now.
I don't
Just
even
at
have
the threat.
Ebola. Somebody tried to quarantine me recently.
Who did?
I can't legally talk about it.
Oh, okay.
It was very.
That's some personal kind of.
It's
You're into one of those weird relationships.
It's a cult, actually,
Yeah, cult.
yeah.
Okay.
the Ebola cult.
Ebola cult.
Yes.
Yes.
I've been watching the Ebola news every day.
Yeah.
Are you?
Really?
Oh, yeah.
I've kind of tuned it out
The
because
World
it's scary.
Health World Health Organization just had a report out 2 days ago saying that there are now 1 million people in quarantine.
1 million?
Yeah, it's an enormous problem, and it's going to affect every country in the world.
Well, it has to. I was surprised they took those people back. I know they're not U.S. citizens. It seemed kind of stupid to take them back into this country and not treat them wherever they are.
Although here, though, and I have not been following this very closely, so I may tell me if I'm completely wrong, but I get
You're wrong.
Oh,
Yeah.
you'd think I'd get used to that.
Nope.
But I was under the impression that here we have the medical resources to treat these people. They've actually found medications that seem to work.
And the FDA will approve them in about 12 years if we spend $1 billion on it. The problem
Sounds
is that
reasonable.
the life cycle for Ebola will give you less than 2 weeks. And so people who have less than 2 weeks to live can't get this treatment because the medical establishment in the world doesn't want to engage in experimental treatments that might kill people for people who are about to die.
Right.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Right. So if you're
like that.
gonna die, you know,
sounds
you
like
shouldn't be
something-
able.
It sounds like something rationale the government would use.
Yeah.
I'm just glad that I'm not under Obamacare yet,
Uh-huh.
because when I needed the rotacuff surgery,
Rotator cuff.
rotator cuff.
Yeah,
I
'cause
I keep screwing that
Right
up.
now, you can't rotate your cuff.
I can't rotate my cuff.
Yeah.
So I needed a rotator cuff surgery. If I was in Obamacare, wouldn't that necessarily the request for treatment go to the insurance, and the insurance would divert that to the NSA? The NSA would say, no, he's a Tea Party member, and then it would go to the IRS, who would deny coverage, or
That-
say live with it.
Not really sure, but certainly I would be more worried about your age. Because,
Why
you
are
know,
you worried about my age? We're not dating.
you're absolutely
And
right.
it's just a number anyway, really.
is,
I mean,
yeah.
what's the big deal?
But actually, the amount of coverage you get
Right.
and the types of services they will give you will depend on your age. And,
No, I mean, if I'm 50 or 60, I should still get reproductive services,
except for you can't reproduce anymore.
contraceptives.
I've been thinking about getting the snip myself.
Right.
I
What?
don't know if that's covered. George, you've been on the show before. Come on, you know.
I
know,
do.
You know,
I do.
what, you know
I
the
know
deal.
exactly what to expect.
Sorry. Anyway, you were saying stuff. My age.
No, I was actually being very serious about this idea that they're going to make age-based decisions about your health care
Oh, yeah.
rather than about best practice decisions about your health care.
Right, which is what the way it used to be. If you had insurance, and they thought they could now, to be fair, to be honest, there was still limits. There was at a point at which if somebody was 95 years old and they wanted a heart transplant, they'd say, yeah, I don't think so.
Right, right.
You know, so there was always that barrier where you had, for a certain age, they would not treat something because it was just a waste of money, actually. But most of the decisions were based on what was best for you, not how whether or not you could, your benefit from it would be for 20 years or not.
Well, the cost of your total life health spending is most of it is spent in the last 2 years of your life.
Correct.
Right now. And so what we found is we have a healthcare system that hockey sticks. And so when somebody decides that, well, maybe spending that much money for 2 more years isn't so good, they'll come up with a better alternative.
Exactly. They will have to come up with a better alternative. Think of China. Right now, China, because of their one-child policy, is very, very quickly approaching a point at which the younger generation could not possibly sustain the older.
That's interesting.
We have that problem in the United States now. We did in my generation, where
Yeah. It's an aging
Gary's
population.
age, there are more of you, there are more baby boomers than there are of my generation.
Tough. Oh, yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah, that's correct.
And then we have approximately the same. We have a little bit over one. We have a little over 1% replenishment rate in the millennial generation.
That's why we need illegal aliens.
Why?
we
To pick the oranges?
Yes.
What does that have to do with healthcare? I'm so confused.
If you have illegal aliens, they're younger and they can pick oranges. When they're picking oranges, they're making money. If they're making money, they're paying into Obamacare. If they're paying into Obamacare, they provide for us elderly baby boomers.
That actually makes sense.
See,
You've solved it.
okay.
right up until somebody says he's Gary. Gary's older. He's older than Matt. So which is better? Should we spend the money on 10 Matts or Gary? Gary will get 2 years life, 4 years life out of it, maybe.
Holy crap, dude! You're really freaking not giving me much hope at all.
No, I'm talking about the possibility of somebody else making a decision.
Feeling really vulnerable.
It's a good thing you didn't leave the decision to me. There was this one day I would have pushed the button on you, but
Just one?
yeah.
Come on, just one? It's got to be more.
There's one day where you're going, he's Gary.
Bet it had something to do with
I asked him to
right
take a
work.
walk. I asked him to take a walk with me during the right to work vote. I'm like, hey, Gary, why don't you take a walk with me?
Yeah.
Someone else suggested you take a walk.
Oh yeah, everybody told
Would that be
a
off of
lot
short
of
gear?
people.
Yeah.
Huh?
No,
short
no,
gear?
because you just
No.
needed to. You want
All-
to tilt the vote just a little bit.
No, one of the things they do is because I was chairman of the committee, the common thing to do if you're a chairman when you're voting against leadership, and keep in mind a lot of people do vote against leadership, okay, even if they're in chairman or vice chairman, whatever. But on the right to work vote, it turned out that Bill O'Brien, I didn't know that at the beginning of the session, the most important bill that he cared about for the entire 2 years was right to work. For some reason, that became the vote that he cared about absolutely the most. And so what some people do is that if they were in my position, they would just walk out of the room so that they're at least not voting against leadership. I felt that that's, and for me, is cowardly. And you should be, if you believe in something and you're going to vote for something, you should do it and damn the consequences. I mean, if you're going to
Yeah.
go up to Concord and just vote the way leadership tells you to vote, regardless of what position you're in, then what's the point of having representatives? Everybody, you could
Can we just
stay
delegate
home.
the vote and stay home?
Delegate the vote to the Speaker of the House and stay home.
Yeah, I'm not in favor of that either.
So-
I agree, because otherwise, we wouldn't have been up there fighting Terry Norelli for the last 2 years.
Exactly. So I stayed. But anyway, he and a bunch of people asked me to take a walk, and I did not do that.
I actually offered to walk with you.
Oh, that was very kind of you. But
That you-
it still would have made
Enough
me
of-
the coward.
Yeah.
Because they wouldn't have noticed you weren't there.
Unless they were just looking out for your health. Or did you get some exercise?
That is true. If that was the case, I probably would have done it.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was one of the times he wanted to press the button.
Although,
And that's why you shouldn't give him that authority.
Right.
but
Right.
one of the
Absolute
fun things.
power corrupts.
Yes.
You know what my favorite experience with Gary is, though? Watching Channel 9 News. And they zoom in.
yeah.
Oh
They
yeah, I
zoom
love
back
that.
from this, he's reading a gun magazine. And it's,
Yeah.
during the middle of a boring lecture. And there are some lectures in the House that get really boring.
But you know what? That was the debate over constitutional amendment to the education funding. And the reason I stayed in the room, because usually I wouldn't stay in the room, because I'd already decided that I thought the bill was a bunch of bull. But Representative Paul Ingridson was voting in favor of it, which shocked me. So I wanted to hear what he had to say. Because I have so much respect for that guy. I think he's a lot smarter
You want
than
to go
I'll
to dinner
ever
with him
be.
tonight?
Huh?
You want to go to dinner with him tonight?
I would love to.
Perfect.
Okay.
Because he's in town.
No, I did not. But anyway,
I'm going to dinner with him as soon as we're done.
I would love to do that because he's just one of the.
Yeah, I know.
As you know, there's
do.
a certain people in the House that you just have so much integrity and are so bright, and he's just a wonderful person. So he's
been on the show.
yeah,
Right? Yeah.
and he was voting for it. So I said, okay, I got to listen to his because maybe I'm wrong. Okay, because I know that I'm wrong a lot, and if he's voting for it, I got to at least give him the. So I'm sitting there just thumbing through the shotgun news, and because I'm really not reading it because I'd have to sit it up like this to actually read it. But I was actually on a page where it was a girl in a bikini, I think, with a shotgun. All right, full page, like fold out kind of thing, almost like a Playboy fold out. And so Channel 9 does this report on this debate, and they go to the speaker, and they ask him, and they talk to Norelli, and they talk to the governor, and they talk to Pete Silva. And then they said, and some people weren't even paying attention. They pan over to me with shotgun news
And a girl in a bikini.
and a girl in a bikini. It was beautiful.
Holding a shotgun.
Oh dear.
It was absolutely beautiful to me because anybody that's in the legislature understands that the fact that I was even in the room for that 2-hour debate is actually,
It's a big deal.
It's a big deal.
Yeah.
But
I mean, what would be really cool if they really wanted to improve things, is make it so that you could vote whenever you've decided, and then when a
walk out.
majority have decided, you just kill the debate.
Right.
I mean, because that
makes
just makes
sense.
sense.
Yeah, that does
You go,
make sense.
hey, you know what? If the decision's made, then all you're doing is soundbiting after that.
Right.
And we have certain times when the discussion, everyone's made their decision, and it just goes on and on and on.
Yeah.
It does, and it's relentless. That's why they were picking on that. You know that very liberal lady from Keene. I forgot.
Cynthia Chase.
Yeah, Cynthia Chase. All across the Republican Facebooks was this picture of Cynthia Chase playing solitaire. Okay, and I don't agree with her on probably anything. I probably voted with her maybe twice by accident. Cynthia Chase is playing solitaire, and everybody says, "Why? What? You know, she's a representative. She's supposed to be, you know, being engaged." And I says, "You guys are you're so hypocritical. Look in front of her. There's nobody else there.
Right.
She's probably got 20 seats in front of her that are vacant.
Right, right,
At
yeah.
least she's in the room.
Yeah. Well, plus people can do something like
Yeah.
that and still pay attention
Absolutely,
at the same time.
yeah.
Well,
So-
you know,
It's like knitting or something.
right.
my wife says she's going to cross stitch when she gets there.
Yeah.
She does. It's a little cross stitch
Cross
thing.
stitch, yes.
Yeah, and she does it like she sits up in the gallery and does it now. Now,
Right,
if she gets
yeah.
elected, she's going to do it from, from her own seat.
But see,
Yeah.
that's okay. Nobody would question that.
yeah.
But playing solitaire, reading
Right.
shotgun news, well, that's a different ballgame.
And then, of course, there's a person who used to sit near me. I'm not going to say in which direction or what year. There was a person who used to sit near me who would spend the entire day playing Angry Birds.
Really?
That's awesome. I got to get that.
Angry Birds?
Yeah.
You can't get it anymore.
You can't?
No, they took it off.
No, that's Flappy Bird.
Oh.
Flappy Bird. Flappy Bird
Sorry,
is
my
different from Angry
mistake.
Birds.
Oh.
Okay.
Flappy Bird was one of the best-selling applications in the App Store for iPhone.
What was
And-
that one?
You had to tap the screen and the bird flaps, and you have to keep flapping it, or otherwise he flops down.
And
dies.
it was the game was very simple, but the guy who made it was making money on it.
Yeah.
What a jerk.
Hold on. And got to a point where he had the #1 app in the App Store. And so he was making a ton of money and seeing how much time was being wasted. Like, it's one thing to write a game and have it be kind of cool.
Yeah.
But if you have the #1 game that was supposed to be for somebody to play it for 10 minutes, and people are playing this thing for hours,
Right.
just tapping the screen, and he's going, no productive output.
Right.
And because it's so popular, it becomes more popular.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
And so he pulled it off the app market. #1 game,
Huh.
and he goes out and says it's no longer for sale. I'm done.
Wow.
Like, he went through, according to some of the news reports, a month's worth of frustration over the
So
wasted time. He was making over $1 million a day in revenue to himself on this game. So he's just, money was just coming in and coming in, and he shut it off. And so what happened is, after he shut it off and you couldn't get it anymore, people were going out and selling their phones that had it on there because the game was so popular.
Yeah.
So the offer had gotten up to over $1,000 a phone with Flappy Birds on it.
Wow.
Really?
Yep.
That is so stupid.
Yep.
That was like when Twinkies went off the market and they were selling a box of Twinkies
Oh yeah.
for like $60 or $120 or something like that. I mean, I only bought a few.
Boxes.
They last forever.
Yeah, I know.
Well,
I've
you
actually
don't know
seen one at the EPA office. I think I've told you this already. At the EPA office in Ohio when I was doing work for the Environmental Protection
what happened.
Agency.
Oh yeah.
They had a Twinkie sitting on the counter, out of a package, just sitting there with a Post-it note of a date.
Yeah.
Now, when I was there, that was back when I met my wife. That was 22 years ago when I met my wife.
Yeah.
This thing had been there for over 20 years.
Wow.
It was just sitting on the counter, looked like it had just come out of a package.
Wow.
That's really healthy.
Yeah. So, since it hadn't started to rot by then, I'm pretty sure it probably hasn't started to rot by now.
Right,
and they
right.
probably just got it still there.
Yeah.
Because it was sort of this joke that they left there for a couple of days to see
Yeah.
what happened, and they just left it there, and you can imagine it becomes an attraction at the office.
Oh yeah. Oh no doubt.
Like you bring the
Definitely.
guests in. Yeah.
Anyway, so I guess we probably should talk about what you. So you're running for Senate. Who are you running against in the Senate?
In the
Senate.
primary,
Yes.
I'm running against Robin Dunphy. She's a member of the school board in Manchester.
Okay.
She was the Litchfield Republican meeting last night, talking about the implementation and the vote by the school board on Common Core.
And she's for it or against it?
Well, she said last night that she was against it. We are happy we adopted Manchester standards.
Which are the same thing as Common Core.
Correct. So, she
So
was
she
for
was
it.
against it before she was for it.
Yeah. So, yeah. After I put a big sign on South Willow Street that says "Stop Common Core," have you seen my face down there? It's pretty awesome, right?
Where is that sign?
Do you know on South Willow Street, where Dunkin' Donuts is, right
Yeah,
above that?
yeah.
I have this big sign that says
Oh,
"Stop
okay.
Common Core" with my face on it.
Oh,
Yeah, for some reason she decided that she was less of a fan maybe of Common Core, so now she's in favor of Manchester standards only.
yeah.
That's not Common Core. It's just it looks over 80-something%. They're not sure how many percent like Common Core, so it's
Right.
mostly Common Core. But Manchester made its own decision.
Anyway.
the way I look at that, I'm not sure that you would if you were in her district, based on her position on guns. I'm pretty sure I know how you would vote on that.
Why? What does she say on guns?
Well, she's not what I would call a strong constitutional carry type.
Well, I know, but she said something specific. In other words,
I believe
that's
that
too-
when
that's
you see
too
the-
vague.
I believe that when the ratings come out, gun ratings come out from some of the gun rating folks, her
Some
ratings
of that's not even that accurate either.
Mm-hmm.
There was one year where let's see, it was Lee Quant got a horrible gun rating from Go New Hampshire because they screwed up.
Uh-huh.
Okay, Lee Quant he's so pro.
He's not Kyle Tasker on guns, but he's close.
He's pretty dang close.
Uh-huh.
Okay, but he got a horrible rating. I got one of those questionnaires. You probably got it too. And I forget which gun group it was from. And it was, they're using double negatives for everything. They said, would you vote against a bill that would restrict or that would abolish? Or it was like they were kept twisting it around. Like, it's okay, that's a plus. You'd have to do it like a math problem.
I know. They
know
try
what
to
I mean?
trick you all the time.
And,
Really?
and it's like, I thought you wanted to know how I was going to vote, not try to trick me into getting a bad score,
Right.
which should be is counter. I don't see the. I guess it's a test to see how good you are at math, and know that two positives, are good, and two
Right.
negatives equal a positive, and it was horrible. You had to read each question a couple times just to make sure that you understood what they were asking. So if you get a bad score on that, I don't think that means anything because they're trying to trick you. NHFC uses other criteria to determine whether people have a good gun rights, including pro-life and things like that. They'll score somebody down based on other issues.
They're gonna mark me down based on my pro-life stance.
Exactly.
Because I voted pro-life on every election. I mean, every vote we had in the House for 4 years. But I explicitly say I don't think it's the government's role to tell a woman what she should and shouldn't do.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm not pro-life enough for that.
Okay, so that's what I'm getting at. So you get NHFC, whose scorecard to me is irrelevant, and they're basically the Nazis of the gun groups.
Okay.
And I mean that literally because they will attack anybody that disagrees with them, even moderately disagrees with them.
Oh yes.
Okay, which is, in other words, they are if you're a legislator and you don't go along with them, they will attack you. So therefore, they want to be a super legislature.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, their technique isn't to try to negotiate and make compromises and try to get something done. Their technique is to viciously attack anybody that does not do exactly what they're told.
Mm-hmm.
Am I correct?
I don't know. Like, I actually have had a reasonable experience with NHFC.
Okay, now, Marilynda Garcia lost one of her elections and I forget what she did because of them. And they were proud of it. David Welch. Dave Wheeler was quite proud of getting rid of him. And Dave Welch is, you might disagree on some stuff on the Second Amendment, but it's not, calling him anti-Second Amendment is insane. They attacked me 2 or 3 times. I lost track. Okay. One was because I didn't consult them first before I introduced legislation, which gives you an idea of how bad they are. It was a gun. It was Jen Coffey's bill about knives. I introduced that in 2002. But what it was hitched to the pistol permit. If you had a pistol license or permit, whatever, some people get upset with if you don't call it the right thing.
It's a concealed carry permit, I believe.
Okay, concealed carry permit. If you had a concealed carry permit, you could also have a switchblade. To me, I figured, okay, that works. Basically, it added pistol permit to the list of people that could have these things. Because that bill, that part of the RSAs is in the Fish and Game laws. You shall not have brass knuckles, slingshot, or an automatic knife unless you're a police officer. So I said, unless you're a police officer or have a pistol permit. They attacked me for that. Then a few years ago, they attacked me for there was a bill in Fish and Game Committee. The bill in the Fish and Game Committee was to change the law because the mechanism to fire a muzzleloader had changed to because they added electronic. So they wanted to update the law so you couldn't have a loaded muzzleloader in your car.
That whole set of laws really annoys me.
Okay. Well, anyway,
But go ahead.
and they called me up and said, we would like you to offer an amendment to repeal that entire section, so there's no restrictions on anything loaded in your vehicle. And I understood where they were going with it, and I understood why they said it, but I couldn't. What does it say? A pistol revolver license. Okay. I understood why they said it, but I didn't agree 100%. I felt that the state has a vested interest in restricting having a loaded weapon pointed out the window, a loaded 30-06, because it's not like a handgun. It's completely different.
All right.
And the reason is if you got a 300 Win Mag pointed out the window on a gun rack, and there's a round in the chamber, and you have the safety off, and it goes off, it can kill people in 2 cars over. It's huge. 9mm goes off in your pocket while your kneecap gets frickin' messed up, and that's about it. Nobody else is going to get hurt. So I said, okay, I understand where you're going with this, and so I amended it to say that a loaded rifle or shotgun is one with a round in the chamber, so that you could still have it accessible for self-defense, but it couldn't inadvertently go off.
Do you really? Yeah.
So anyway, we can disagree on this. Okay, I'm not saying you're going to agree with me, but that's the amendment I put forward. I says, okay, I'll go this far, but I'm not going to go. I don't agree with you 100%. So I'll do this, which brings us monumentally closer to what they want. You got a position where you can't have anything, even near. You can't have a shotgun and the shells in the same area. They have to be separated far enough so that it could not be easily loaded. You've gone from that position to a position where you can have it, but you just can't have it around in the chamber so it doesn't accidentally go off, which is almost exactly where they want to be, minus racking the thing into the chamber to defend yourself. Okay? They attacked me for that. They basically said I was anti-gun in the next election.
It was all or nothing with them.
It was
basically.
all or nothing. You either do what you're told, or they attack you. And that's why when J.R. Hole wanted to become a member of the HRA and on the mailing list, I objected to it because he is the secretary of NHFC. And I thought his loyalties might be compromised.
I think he's been a good member of the HRA. That's my opinion.
I know.
I voted in favor of him.
Yeah.
I nominated him.
Yeah, and I didn't. And I called him up and told him too.
Which is
I
good. I mean, I actually had to wait till I got on the HRA list to find out who blocked me for a year.
Oh, I don't know who did that.
It was Lynn Ober.
Oh, that makes sense.
Yeah.
But
She's
anyway,
not, she was not a fan for a long time.
huh? You have people that aren't fans of yours?
I have a few.
Not me. Everybody loves me.
It's funny. I have this joke with my wife about politics.
Yeah.
And I say, look, if there aren't people complaining about what I'm doing in politics, I'm wasting my time.
Right.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay? Because,
If you haven't obtained any enemies, you're not doing anything.
right.
Right.
And so, I'm not going along to get along. I'm going out and saying, you know what? I think Bill O'Brien is the best speaker that we've had in the House in decades.
Depends on what criteria.
Managing the budget and making sure that we actually executed on bills. I think we gave up a lot of opportunity. I don't think we were well coordinated. There are things we could have done better. But when you compare the actual results against what we said we wanted to do and what we accomplished, it was pretty phenomenal.
Yes, that's one way to look at it. The other way to look at it is
The Tony Sultani way.
no. The other way to look at it with Gene Chandler, I agree. This is because I have to decide who I'm going to vote for speaker.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and I'll tell you what my problem is.
Go.
Gene Chandler, when he was in as speaker, it was profoundly more cordial.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, like night and day.
Yeah.
Okay. Gene Chandler also was very respectful of people's time.
Mm-hmm.
Bill O'Brien was neither of those two. However, you are correct. If you and I looked at a list of things that we thought were important, and I'm sure most of those we're going to agree on,
Mm-hmm.
okay, more things that you and I care about policy-wise made it through O'Brien's 2 years than 2 years of Gene Chandler.
Yes.
Okay? So I agree with that part, but for instance, Bill O'Brien called us, you probably know this better than I do, I think it was called us back into session 3 times to try to get right to work through.
Yes.
Okay. You have 400 state representatives,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
For 8 hours a day.
Yes.
That is such an abuse of their time because you're not calling them back because there's some compelling reason. You're calling them back just because you want to get the right number to get a bill through. Period. Whatever he said to the contrary is just BS. He wanted right to work to go through, so he forced, because he was speaker, 400 people to come back for 3 days, many of which, as you know, have jobs.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so like for instance, when I was working, I used to have to take vacation days.
Mm-hmm.
I would have lost 3 vacation days because this jerk wants something so badly that he's willing to do anything to get it. That's an abuse of power. You got 400 volunteers in the state legislature. You should be respectful of their time. You just because you're speaker doesn't give you a carte blanche to abuse that and take advantage of people and make people come from the North Country all the way down just to feed your ego. Okay?
Well, I watched a video documentary on the taking of the federal House by Rahm Emanuel by the Democrats a few years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And what they had done is they were actually tracking the Democrats and the Republicans and getting comments from both sides. And they didn't know how the documentary was going to come out because they, were doing it. And it was funny because I was watching the phone calls from Rahm Emanuel to people who were running for Congress.
Mm-hmm.
And he was getting Republicans to convert to be Democrats and doing all kinds of things. And he really was, I heard him say, I don't care what your position is on issues. I just don't care. We'll treat you better if you become a Democrat. Okay?
Yeah.
We only care about one thing, and that is, are you going to vote for us for are you going to cast your vote for
Obamacare.
no, this was for I almost said Terry Norelli.
Oh, yeah. Pelosi.
Yeah, Nancy Pelosi.
Yeah.
And it's like, are you going to vote for Nancy? If you are, we'll support you. We'll get you money.
Yeah.
Because he knew exactly how many seats he needed.
Yeah.
He knew exactly where they were, and he would do anything to get them.
Yep.
Because if you're the Speaker of the House, you get to assign seating.
Mm-hmm.
You get to assign committees. You get to assign schedules. And you get to control the dialogue. You get to control when things come to the floor.
Yep.
And that is your prerogative. I know because I watched Terry Norelli do it.
Yep.
I challenged Terry Norelli. I challenged somebody else who was standing up with as a speaker against Terry Norelli. And I watched them actually go and take a vote for which there was a motion for reconsideration,
Yep.
which they denied the motion for reconsideration, for which I protested. I actually stood up. All House members sit down to take a vote. And in one specific case, I stood up. I would not sit down because I was trying to obstruct the process because
Yeah.
we had somebody who was trying to make a motion for reconsideration on the previous bill. But if you don't do it before the next action happens,
It's too late.
it's too late. So I'm standing there obstructing the process, trying to make sure that this person, who's a Democrat, they were actually on the other side, but I was trying to make sure we got the right procedure happening.
Right.
And I'm out there fighting for it. And she goes, no. And the lady would not recognize my motion. She told me to go sit down. And I said, not until you recognize me for a motion. And she said, no. And they sent the sergeant at arms over to me and told me that he told me to go and sit down,
Wow.
or he was going to do something about it.
Wow.
And I said, then you need to call the state police and tell them to bring handcuffs. It's actually what I told him.
Yeah,
Apparently, I had to go to the speaker's office a few days later to Terry Norelli because apparently I upset the guy so much they thought he was going to have a heart attack.
He's pretty old.
Oh,
He
really?
is old, yeah.
He's a very nice guy, too.
But the point was, we're supposed to do it the right way.
Yeah.
But it happens in both directions. Maybe the Democrats have shown it to be less direct. But you know what? The people who I asked to vote for me, I asked to vote for me because we're going to go and move as much of the Republican agenda and the Republican platform forward as possible. Now, I feel exactly the same way. I feel betrayed by a number of people in the Republican Party because they never entertained an amendment that they told us they would on getting the government out of marriage in the marriage debate. On, repeal same-sex marriage, keep same-sex marriage, or the third alternative was get the government out of it completely.
Right.
And they said the year before that they were going to interim study that, which is politely kill it, and then we'll talk about it next year. And they said you can reintroduce the amendment. And they said, well, because it died last year in interim study and didn't come back, it's no longer an amendment you can bring to the floor.
That's not true. If it was killed, you can't bring it to the House floor.
They got me on a rule technicality, and you've seen me. My problem at the House,
George, right?
yeah,
Yeah, okay.
is I'm a pit bull on these type of issues.
Yeah.
Because we need to get it right. We're actually making decisions for everyone in the state. We're representing 1.2 million people. And when it comes down to, less than a dozen people who are making the final decision,
Yep.
we need to do more than stand, on technicality. We need to do the right thing, and some of these votes are really close. The complete decriminalization of marijuana passed the House this year.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, got defeated subsequently. This is the first legislature that's ever voted for that in the country.
Yeah.
That actually it lifts the bar and changes the discussion. That made nationwide news, and now it's okay. Citizens have adopted it. The general public has said we're in favor of decriminalization or legalization. And now you've had one legislature that has passed it just once.
Right.
And that was by 2 votes.
Oh, is that close? Wow.
Actually, it was defeated the first time, and I got the guy who sits next to me to make a motion for reconsideration because he was in the affirmative.
Yeah.
And another guy in the back went out and did the same thing. So we had two people who were asked for reconsideration and switched their vote, and so we passed it.
Yeah, a lot of times that's a setup too. If you
Really?
know it's going to be close, you can have somebody vote the opposite to where they want it, so that they can be in a position to vote for reconsideration.
Oh, okay.
Oh yeah,
Interesting.
It's there's a lot of scamology.
Yeah.
there's Kevin Avard, who served with us in the House last term, who's running for Senate with me, and I was on his show last night, and he said nobody plans a floor fight as well as you. Now, you might have a different opinion on that, but I'm really good on the tactical floor fight, get it done, overturn bad committee reports, send things back to committee, redirect, deflect, and change the procedure. That's where I'm really, really good.
Yeah.
So that we can have an opportunity to stall, build consensus, get amendments, whatever. Do you agree or disagree with that?
If that's true, why are you running for Senate where that talent is no longer going to be available?
Because we sent a lot of good bills over to the Senate. And what we need, the other thing I'm really good at in the House, is my two favorite words, roll and call. And nobody seems to be able to speak those words in the same sentence in the Senate. But if we get roll call votes from the Senate, we'll have more accountability.
I know, but I think that how many votes do they need to get a roll call? In
What's
other
that?
words, if you ask for a roll call in the House, you need 10 people to second it.
No, you don't. Oh, in
Yes, you
the
do.
House. Yeah, in the House you do. Yeah. In the Senate, you only need one other.
So you only need 2 people.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
That's actually pretty cool, because that would be good, because that's
Right.
what the Senate does all the time.
Well, so what everyone says is, if you get somebody to make the motion, I'll second it, knowing that nobody wants to go first.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's always a weird thing about human nature. People don't want to stand out. I don't understand it. I mean, as you know, I'm not too shy about standing out.
Really?
Yeah,
Neither am I.
I know. One thing we have in common. Hey, I want to talk to you about my gun. Nope, that's not it. We run out of time.
Well, that's handy.
I know, that's what it's for, isn't it?
You should just wear it all the time, even when you don't need it. You can put
I
stuff
think
in
I'm
it.
gonna.
Yeah.
Plus, it garners sympathy.
There you go. Yeah.
I think I'm pulling on. Never mind.
Geez, Gary, we would think you'd know how to use that by now. Especially if you're going to put stuff in it.
As you know, and this is public knowledge, so it's no secret. Dave Booton was caught getting pretty trashed and yelling at somebody at a bar. That was on YouTube.
I've enjoyed that quite a bit, actually.
When was this? I didn't know about this.
Oh, really? I didn't repost it because he's drunk and he's acting like an idiot. But,
Was this
if
recent?
being drunk and being a
really?
politician was going to keep people from running for office, nobody would do it.
Well, that's good
So-
for Jane Cormier then. Huh?
Yeah, pretty much. Well, the other thing is as things unfold out in Missouri, you see all those people looting and stuff like that. There is an absolute necessity to have a free society.
Mm-hmm.
It is necessary for the people and the politicians to have a certain level of morality
And accountability.
and accountability. You can't have an immoral electorate and or immoral politicians and a free society at the same time.
Okay.
There has to be some standards. The analogy I always use for people is, and I understand there's an issue with the analogy, but it works. I go into Walmart with my grandson. He's 11 years old, or well, go with Scott. He's 8. He was on last week on the show. And I'm going to go over and look at the electronics. And he says, "Hey, I want to go over to the toys, Grandpa. Can I go over there?"
Mhm.
Okay. If he's a well-behaved kid, what do I say?
That's a decision. If you're the person in charge, you have to make that decision
Yeah,
yourself.
but the decision would be, yeah, sure, go ahead.
Mhm.
Because I know if something's happens, it's going to be because it's an accident. It's not going to be because he deliberately pulled stuff down and started taking stuff out of the packages and started kicking balls around them and things like that. Now, conversely, if I have a grandson, say Scotty's just completely out of control all the time,
Mhm.
then the answer would be, well, I got to go look at the new hard drive I need, and when I'm done, if you've behaved yourself, I'll go over with you and let you look at stuff for 5 minutes.
Mhm.
Okay? Well, it's the same thing in society. Your liberty is dependent on your own being responsible yourself.
Mhm.
If people are completely irresponsible, government necessarily grows to maintain order,
Mhm.
because order is to have you have to have order to have a society. You can't be in complete disarray and confusion and absolute mayhem like the people out in Missouri throwing things through windows and taking people's property
Mhm.
because somebody was killed. Doesn't make any sense. Anyway, so I usually have Matt read this stuff because he's more
Yeah, I
good
can-
at reading. This is what George Washington said in his first inaugural address.
Okay. Oh, okay. This is it right here.
Yeah.
Okay. Washington's first inaugural address, individual or private morality and virtue are necessary for the country to prosper. He said, quote, I don't know that word, propitus? Propitus?
It's a good one.
The propitious smiles of heaven can never be expected on a nation.
Impetuous?
Propitious? Could be. Yeah, I think you're right. The propitious smiles of heaven can never be expected on a nation that disregards the eternal rules of right and order which heaven itself has ordained.
Then read John Adams' quote.
And John Adams said, quote, our Constitution was made only for a moral and religious people. It is wholly inadequate to the government of any other.
Right. So then you go to Article 38 of the New Hampshire Constitution. That's
Okay.
from here to here.
Okay. So Article 38, social virtues inculcated, says a frequent recurrence to the fundamental principles of the Constitution and a constant adherence to justice, moderation, temperance, industry, frugality, and all the social virtues are indispensably necessary to preserve the blessings of liberty and good government. The people ought, therefore, to have a particular regard to all those principles in their choice of their officers and representatives, and they have a right to require their lawgivers and magistrates an exact and constant observance of them in the formation and execution of the laws necessary for the good administration of government.
So the common denominator is you have to vote in people with good character. I'll give you an example. Bob Smith. Whether you agree with some of his decisions or not is another question. I disagree with a couple, but for the most part, I know he's an honorable guy. I know that if he's voted in, he's going to go up there and represent the people and represent and defend the Constitution. Period. Some of the other ones, I don't think so. And that's to me is what's gone on. When Bob Smith was in the Congress, a friend of mine from Ware would go up to Congress to try to help because he worked with a military supplier of equipment, and all the other congressmen and senators and congressmen, delegates from New Hampshire, he could not get in their office unless he had his checkbook open. Those were all Republicans. Judd Gregg, Charlie Bass, and I don't remember what the other congressman was. Okay, that's what I think. To me, that's what's going on with this country. We keep electing people who are fundamentally don't have those fundamental principles at heart. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
There's no. We don't, as a people, are not taking that into account when we're voting for people. We're taking into account, we're looking at the election just long enough to see who's handsome and who has the nicest ads, and then they vote. Mm-hmm. And we don't understand the moral character of the people who we're voting for. Like Brown doesn't seem to have, he pretty much will say whatever it takes to get elected. Mm-hmm. And so therefore, his moral character is in question, period. Mm-hmm. And therefore, you shouldn't vote for him, period. Is that correct?
That's my feeling, but
You know, it's like
I-
if I vote for you, I know exactly where you stand and what you're going to do when you get there. You know, I might not agree with it all.
You might not, but that's okay. If I tell you that this is what I'm going to do based on my history, you can compare the signs that I had printed that said I'm going to go to Concord and do X, Y, and Z,
Right.
and then compare my result. And my sponsored bills and my votes will be consistent with what I told people.
Yeah.
My wife doesn't agree with me all the time, but I
Really?
will tell. Oh yeah.
Huh.
But
That came up on the show once, I remember. I even remember it was parental notification, I think.
yeah,
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I just think I think that the fundamental. I think that's why we try to start republics in other countries and it doesn't work. You know, like in Iraq, you have to have a moral populace, an educated moral populace for that to work.
so here's a minor problem with your premise.
Yep.
We're almost out of time, by the way.
You assume that every culture shares the same morality, when in fact
They don't.
they don't.
True.
And so when you go out and talk about the moral code of any society, when that Constitution was written, my wife wouldn't be able to run for office because she wouldn't have the right to vote.
True.
Right.
Okay? And so you look back at
She
a
wasn't.
history.
She was. Well, you are a landowner, so she would have got that. Had to be landowner, male, white. Oh, I understand.
Right. And so what we need to make sure that we always cover is when we have a conversation about moral values are subject to the evolving demands of a society. And we have a
I'm not gonna agree with that 100%. Go ahead.
I can tell you my dad was a minister and there's an awful lot of slavery in the Bible.
It doesn't condone it. It acknowledges it.
Well, then.
We can have a chat about that over dinner because you only have a couple of minutes. But I have some great references. But basically, I think that society has adapted and evolved. The idea that you could actually sell your children into slavery is referred to in the Bible. And, that was these are, things that have happened as our society has evolved. We have become more mature in some areas and more ignorant in others.
Mm-hmm.
What we need to do is say, what does it mean to have a civilized society? And a civilized society will respect the differences among groups of people as long as those groups of people don't force it on someone else. My wife will tell you, she used to put a copy of The American President in my travel bag so that I could watch it if I was stuck somewhere and I needed a movie.
Yeah.
There's a great speech in there where the president is talking about the fact that making sure that someone who disagrees with you has the right to speak against you is more important than whatever it is you have to say if you really care about who we are. Letting them say whatever it is that is contrary to your view so that you can have a debate
Right.
is fundamental
Yes.
to who we are as a society. It's more important than everything else. And if we're not having that level of debate, then we're not going to improve. We aren't having that level of debate anymore.
Well, I think part of what I'm getting at is we're not teaching kids of their constitutional obligations and what they should be looking for. I mean, I think anybody in this table will agree that honesty is one of those moral criteria that we should use to determine who our senators and or congressmen are.
I would agree with that 100%.
I don't think anybody disagrees with that. So I think we can start there and say, yes, this is a line you should not cross. If you have somebody that lies to you, well, then they're going to lie to you when they get there, and they lied to you to get there. So therefore, don't vote for them, period. I don't care what party they are, independent, libertarian, Republican, Democrat. It has no bearing on it. They're a liar, so therefore, don't vote for them. And I think we can agree on certain moral criteria that are constant through the ages and culture. And some cultures, I suppose.
Yeah.
Anyway, we got to go. Thank you very much, George and
Yes,
Rhonda.
thank
It's
you
a pleasure
both.
to be here.
And your mate, Matt, right?
Nick.
Nick.
Yeah.
We'll see you later. See you next week, Nick.
Good
Hi.
night.